Once I turned this to the left, the contraption would be Okay, don't panic, fire! Fire! Welcome to Tears of the Kingdom, where making nightmares out of straightforward situations is my speciality. And so is falling through tree branches while engaging in perfectly executed parkour. I know I made that jump, I know I did, you piece of... Ah, but wait, how did Tarzan end up on this mystical plane? Well, I'll tell you. Story time! Once upon a time, there was a posh princess called Zelda who led our hero Link down a dark cave when his sword began to glow blue. It was orcs! Okay, it wasn't orcs. But there were a load of fancy paintings, and Zelda gave a long history lesson that Link didn't care about because all he wondered was, how in the name of all the fantasy realms did she manage to sneak an iPhone into this dimension? Link felt like a total moron for holding a torch in this situation and gave it back, but was grateful for once to begin this game with 30 hearts of life. Somehow Mumra from the Thundercats had returned, and worse than that, Zelda found a magical comma. Realizing that she would now correct his grammar forever, Link lost the will to live, and as Zelda began yet another monologue, Mumra sent the castle into hyperspace, and good old gullible Link tried to save Zelda yet again. But a mysterious guardian saved him from his idiocy, and he awoke with new powers, ready to set foot upon a strange new land. Well, I say foot, but I really mean belly flopper of the century. And here we are. I hadn't long recovered from my fat splash when a mean green fighting machine wanted a piece of me. All I had was a tree branch to whack it to oblivion, but whack it we did, then made my way towards the biggest structure on this island, but there was something fishy about the statue in my path. Perhaps another green monster. Sneaking up on it, the game physics said no. But it turned out the whole thing was a misunderstanding, as the monsters with light bulbs for ears were apparently friendly. I got Zelda's iPhone back and made my way towards the princess. Well, I had to try. Upon reaching her location, my palm print didn't fit the door and I was denied. But the translucent deer man said some words that I wasn't listening to because I was here for one thing and one thing only, to make nightmare fuel out of the game's puzzles, which turned out to be the only way through this door by conquering 3 puzzle-filled shrines. The first one was to be a simple test of my problem solving. Use the magical arm to cross a gap. Too easy, and this was the only sensible thing you'll see me do all day, because when the gap got bigger, so did my IQ. Oops. Oh, so that's how you throw your weapon. I put the 2 slabs together in the same way as anyone else would, but decided to add the first one as well and make it 3 times as easy. Next up was a rail with hooks and wood at my disposal. How could I possibly ride my way down to the finish line? The answer was obvious, and my engineering project would soon be have everyone traverse the island. Shrine 1 of 3 was complete. On to the second now, which was up an icy mountain, and remaining out in the cold in a flimsy skirt had my life ebbing away, but just as the frostbite nipped at my bits and bobs, I stumbled across spicy peppers, which, when cooked, became my resistance to the cold thanks to the fire in my belly cooking up an inevitable ring sting, but that would come later. Between me and the shrine was an icy river, deadly if fallen into, and another creepy robot let me rent out a boat, explaining the mechanics of this weird place. Whack a device such as a fan, it turns on. Getting across would be simple, but as I prefer to travel in style, I wanted a craft of my own design. Trouble was that getting one with adequate seating turned out to be a little harder than I thought. Eventually, doing the same thing and expecting a different result paid off, and I crossed the waters with ease. Maybe a minor modification. And there you have it, the new method of boating was created. You're welcome. The second shrine was actually really easy thanks to the magical arm granting me vertical portal powers that I would forget to use for the rest of this playthrough, but for now, I got myself another golden ball. Then I was distracted by an alluring treasure up a perch of ice. Guarded by fierce robots, this would be no easy feat as the chest wouldn't open unless they were defeated and my combat skills were... let's just say they weren't exactly legendary.
We can cry when it's over.
no, I needed a way to overcome these foes with my engineering prowess, so I got to work. Apparently, there was a maximum height at which I could levitate this sacred weapon, so some brute force maneuvering was required, and my plan was ready to go. Just needed to borrow one of those dragon heads, and then I turned the confusion up to 100. Before the third shrine, I found a gacha machine where the currency was dead robots, and it spat out all manner of fans, dragon heads, and cooking pots. And just like that, I knew this thing was gonna get all my pocket money. Then I heard a cute squeaky voice cry out for help. It was a talking leaf, separated from their friend by a large gap that a mining cart could easily traverse. Fortunately, solving problems happens to be one of my specialities. Oh, the stone. Yes, that's for the compressible flow, pressure gradients, and other things about aerodynamics that I really can't explain to engineering noobs, but eventually my work was done and we were ready to travel. Of course, I gave our new friend the window seat, which was only polite. My good deed for the day was done, and our besties were reunited. The third shrine was miles away, but I discovered a floating block to place a trinity of fans in the most efficient way possible. Then we set sail. That is, until I crashed into a bunch of trees, then dropped all the fans off the side of a cliff, leading me to another beautiful distraction of a guarded chest. Well, as combat wasn't my thing, I would come up with another genius idea to clear the rabble off this land without swinging my sword. This was perfection. A spinning log fan, and they'd never see it coming. Okay, yep, they saw it. Also, it didn't spin. I give you Spinning Log Fan Mark II, the Double Dragon. Okay, that wasn't working, so it was time for what I'd like to call the bomb trap. Bunch of volatile flowers all in the same place, Dragon's Head ignites them, and everything goes boom! I rounded up the mobs and told them to come get some, but one of the robots apparently really did want some. There was only one way to ensure victory here, and that was to make sure these robots wouldn't leave the very treasure that they guarded. So I boxed them in with a cart full of flower bombs and the dragon's head already inside with them. I ignited it from afar. The victory music was soured by the fact I had just set fire to the entire island, but the opal was mine and the mission continued to the third shrine. I should have used Duracell batteries. By the way, curiosity for budding engineers is a great thing, so when you lay eyes on a magnificent structure, checking out how it was put together is usually a good idea until you realise it's the final boss of the island. So of course, me being a builder, not a fighter, it could only end one way. Eventually, I reached the shrine entrance, the creepy deer ghost asked me to give him my hand, and I was granted the ability to fuse objects to my weapons, and Excalibur was quickly put back in the stone where its true powers were unlocked. I thought it would be especially funny if you could do the same with shields, and to my delight, it could. It then took me an embarrassing amount of time to solve this next puzzle, which went like this. Hot, 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 hot! Chest up on high, surrounded by leaves. Fire fruit on the ground, bow and arrow next to them. Leaves, fire, bow. Leaves, fire, bow. It just wasn't clicking! Until I tried to pick up the bow and got a tutorial. My final challenge seemed as if I'd have to engage in combat after all, but with the leaves on the ground, it would lessen my chances of having to swing anything as my foe burned to a crisp in front of me. However, I still wanted to know how it felt to whack something with a boulder sword, but I missed. Then so did the robot. Perhaps this fighting malarkey may be something I'd engage in now and again after all, especially when the array of peculiar weapons were so readily available. But the shrine was complete and my journey north to open the door to our fair princess began. But before I could get there, I heard another cry for help from a second talking leaf. Clearly these guys were overfilling their backpacks, but never one to refuse someone calling for aid. I made this little fellow the center of my invention. Quite literally.
Help!
Unfortunately, at the moment when we cast off, I slipped. At least least our forest friend made it though. However, I was out of gadgets, so I took a less refined approach. I let my little buddy warm his tootsies on the cooking pot flames, and the rescue was complete. Ta-da! Venturing north, I made my way to the tippity top, and upon reaching the door, it no longer cared about my palm size, opening to reveal the first good bit of news I'd had all day, the magical coma! Finally, I could prevent it from falling into Zelda's hands, but she rickrolled me and tattooed the words Grammar Police on my hand. At least I learned how to turn back time on objects, something that would come in handy should any of my engineering projects get ahead of themselves and fly off again. The final door required a blood sacrifice, and apparently 3 hearts wasn't enough. The deer man sent me to a 4th shrine, whereafter I could then combine 4 golden balls in front of the budget clay statue and create a new heart. Finally, I had the health to be able to survive the blood sacrifice, and I could journey forth to find Zelda many more times so she could vaporize in front of my very eyes. But let's face it, recovering all of those hearts was much more important, so shrines were now a priority. Oh, and I'd forgotten about the final boss. Guess we'd go back and deal with Lighthouse Head. I prepared my finest invention yet, the dragon cart, which he instantly destroyed. And then I can't explain whatever this was. Okay, there was no building my way out of this one. I'd have to fight. An arrow right to the laser beam eye would probably do some serious damage. Unless your arms are that of a stick insect. As the monster chased me around, it appeared that the shiniest block was the weak point, but my bow and arrow strategy only seemingly angered the beast. Couldn't avoid hand-to-hand combat any longer, but if I was going to whack this monster with something, it would be on a long stick, so the next time he slammed, I'd be ready. What a satisfying sound. I thought perhaps I could skip phase 2 altogether, but alas, the boss pulled himself together and prepared a new assault. Like any good boss fight, if you cannot stab them in the eye, the butthole will be how they die. Of all the things a shapeshifter could call on for their final form, I'm not sure this would have been what I'd have gone for, but bullying a Rubik's Cube wasn't beneath even me. The great guardian of the Sky Island was defeated. I transformed a sturdy stick into a meat grinder before hopping to the top of the temple and doing a celebratory belly flop to the next zone, the Kingdom of Hyrule. In order to meet with the locals, I'd need to travel to the capital, but the tumultuous weather forced me to conjure up some transport. I felt safe and sheltered in my rustic carriage, but the changing conditions forced me to make a few adjustments along the way. Once inside, I met with the recorder lady who ordered me to speak to the captain so we could all hold hands and search for Zelda together, which made sense because anyone I tried to talk to along the way seemed of a fragile disposition. But just before I made it to the captain, I was sent a reminder that God did not want me to live. Even the captain was shocked to see me, but when we caught a glimpse of Zelda before she vanished using cheap parlour lighting tricks, all was well in the world again. My orders were to return to the recorder lady and recount our UFO sighting, but before I could do that, I would be smited yet again. Eventually, I figured out that wielding metal weapons and shields in a lightning storm was not the best idea. This weather sucked. I sold an expensive gem and got myself a lovely tunic, but before I was allowed to leave HQ, I graciously updated everyone's Google Maps by launching myself out of a cannon in the shape of a 5G cell tower, scanning the horizons for pesky roadworks and awful traffic conditions. Fortunately, I was gifted a glider for my sacrifice, and the first thing I did with it was try to reach a floating rock with a treasure chest on it.
No! No!
Shortly afterwards, I found myself a horse, and I knew straight away that we were going to be best friends for life. Shame I didn't find out about stables until later, so it was a much shorter friendship than I had originally planned, but I didn't mind because my favourite part of the day had arrived, helping a poor tired leaf reunite with their best pal. Don't worry, little buddy, you need to reach your friend, and reach them you shall! Well, that'd be one way of doing it. A cruel and unusual punishment, not like what I had planned. No, this would be nothing less than a royal crossing, but it might take some time to put together.
2 hours later.
The masterpiece was ready, and once the rain stopped, we'd take it for a spin. I was quite proud of this invention. No wheels, no rockets, just a gentle up and down delivery. Unfortunately, even my magical arm bore the hefty weight of this record-breaking spatula, and I feared that my passenger got a little wet. I popped over to finalise the delivery, but to my horror, I'd lost the leaf. Fortunately, the wind had scooped him up and dropped him on the bank somewhere, so a little stick and a mighty pivot would sort that out. That is, if I wasn't attacked by vampiric squawks! But the delivery was soon back in full swing, followed by multiple accidental dips into the river and, a long pause. But it was all worth it, and our passenger was safely delivered. It never ceased to amaze me how generous and grateful these leaves really were. I made my way across a lovely bridge and spotted a spectacular rock creature. You see, rocks tend to be very friendly in my experience, especially rocks that skipped leg day, so I approached without caution. Let us never speak of this again. With a bruised ego, I still fancied a big boss fight, but perhaps I'd choose an opponent that I could strike first. And what better opponent for a sneaky sneakster such as myself than a sleeping troll? The only place to strike this ugly beast was its stinky poop chute. Perhaps I should have leveled up and come back later, but it was what it was, and this thing was unearthing trees to beat me to death with. The only way this monster was going down was if I rallied the people into becoming a shield for the land. A shield for me while I figured out what to do next. But the big brute wasn't interested in anyone but me, and eventually I mustered the courage to fight before finding out just how much damage the giant's left toenail could actually do. I readied my spiky club and went to war with the beast. Well, if I couldn't clip Hinox's toenails with a club, I'd use a piece of an equally repulsive beast and attach it to my claymore. You see, I got this beautiful horn from one of those thieving pigs from Angry Birds, and all I had to do to get it was avoid a horrendous fight by dropping a string of bombs on a whole pack of them, arriving down below just in time to watch my enemy burn, giving me the boss's horn and plus 16 damage! It was time for a rude awakening. And another uncheesable fight was thoroughly Swiss cheesed. The locals were so impressed with my giant slaying skills that I was rewarded with a balloon ride, which would serve as my initiation for solving any and all mysteries regarding levitation, because upon entering my next shrine, the only way was up. Let's see, there were balloons, burners, and wood. I knew exactly what to do. Have you ever seen a more stable and smooth ride than this? I don't think so. The final challenge though would be a real mind bender, because upon reaching this room I was shown a locked gate but a shape for something to slot into in front of it, and the same again on the other side. The plot thickened as it became clear that there were two massive balls that needed to be flowing up, and the chances of them both going up at the same time in one trip were kinda low, unless you're a ragtag engineer. First up, and most important, would be to fuse the balls together one on top of the other, obviously the small one on the bottom for moronic efficiency, and then the solid base would be drizzled with levitation. But the real driving power behind this flying machine would be the raw dragon flame! Once I turned this to the left, the contraption would be Okay, don't panic, fire! Fire! Fortunately, the wooden platform respawned, and I had redefined the words hot air balloon for all eternity. To think that each time I solved a puzzle, I was furthering the world's imagination and creating common means of transportation for all, it was incredibly satisfying. I'd be a gemionaire after this journey was over. The balls were successfully planted, I got myself another heart, and Zelda's rescue was, well, I'd skipped most of the cutscenes, so I didn't care, but we'd get there eventually. And if you'd like to see more Tears of the Kingdom, perhaps in a stream or future videos, let me know. Hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe! Later!